Hey everyone, this goes out to all the youth and young adults of OCC and to anyone else that happens to be watching. That's okay too. Here's hoping you're having a good weekend and that you have a really good sunny Sunday. At least I think it's supposed to be Sunday. I'm recording this on Friday and it's gorgeous. Not exactly sure what the forecast looks like for the next couple days, but whatever's going on, I hope that life is treating you relatively well and that you're certainly steering clear of COVID 19 and any other hazards that may be out there at this time. At challenging times like this, when there's plenty that can get you down, sometimes it's good to just celebrate what I call a micro triumph. Just a little thing, something that you manage to pull off. Maybe it's routine and totally expected, like you did a load of laundry, you cleaned your room, you got a decent grade on a test, whatever, mowed the lawn. But maybe it's something small but unexpected, a cool little surprise in life. Again, not earth shattering, but just something where you can say, you know what? This brought me a smile during a relatively difficult fall season here for us as a country and as a world. That happened to me a couple weeks ago, and I just quickly want to tell you about it. So, when I was just a wee little lad, early grade school, first, second, third grade, these were the early years of the Milwaukee Brewers existing as a major league franchise. They were, of course, in the American League East back then. And my favorite player on the Milwaukee Brewers was this guy right here. Let's see if I can make it so that you can see it pretty well. That is George the Boomer Scott. His nickname was the Boomer. He was one of the more imposing power hitters in the Brewers lineup at that time, and he played first base. And in fact, I think it was largely because of George the Boomer Scott that when I got old enough in, I think, third grade or maybe fourth to play Little League, I wanted to play first base. And by and large, that's where I played. During Little League and on into middle school baseball as well. Well, okay, so that was my kind of childhood baseball hero. So a couple weeks ago, I went to a rummage sale out in Wauwatosa, and it was a rummage sale to raise money for the McCannon Brown Homeless Sanctuary. Now, some of you watching this video today have been with me at Hephatha Lutheran Church in Milwaukee, serving a Friday meal to homeless and hungry folks on behalf of the McCannon Brown Homeless Sanctuary. Others of you have been with me volunteering and helping to clean out the building that's going to be their new welcome center for the homeless, located on Center Street and 24th in Milwaukee. You may have volunteered there at one of the last couple of 30-hour famines over these last few years. So some of you, at least out there, are familiar with the organization and just what awesome work they do on behalf of those in need in the poorest zip code in the entire state of Wisconsin, 53206. Well, so I'm at this rummage sale in Wauwatosa. And the only reason I'm there is just hopefully to drop a few dollars on a few items, find some trinket or book or something that I can use because I just want to be supportive of the McCannon Brown Homeless Sanctuary. And I browse around and I did find a book and I think one other item, something or another. And then I found this. Check that out. A bobblehead of George the Boomer Scott even with the uniform style and the helmet logo style that was the norm back in the early 70s when the Brewers were, a brand new organization to Major League Baseball. So, what a micro triumph I had. Just a random occurrence of finding a bobblehead of my childhood baseball hero at a Wauwatosa rummage sale in support of the McCann and Brown Homeless Sanctuary. Folks, in these trying times, we have got to seize upon the opportunities to celebrate micro triumphs. And so I share that as an example. Be on the lookout in your own life. Be on the lookout for those micro triumphs. And when they happen, celebrate them. Let even the small things put a smile on your face, because goodness knows if all we do is focus on the national and global news, things can get a little bit depressing. So find those micro triumphs, seize on them, and let them bring a smile to your face from time to time. Now, we do want to get into a Bible passage from the New Testament book of Hebrews today, but first, I thought we would get back to something we've kind of let languish for a month or two, and that is this week in Christian history. A lot of you know the way this works. It's kind of playing a game. If we were in person in the youth room or something, we would actually have this be a guessing game and hand out candy prizes and all that. But through this medium of YouTube videos and you watching at home, you're just going to have to take your best guess, and if you're relatively close, give yourself a pat on the back. Maybe tell your parents you get an extra scoop of ice cream or something if you come close on these. All right, this week in Christian history, 2 items for you today. First, on September 22nd of what year, President Abraham Lincoln issues the preliminary Emancipation Proclamation after the costly Union victory at the Battle of Antietam. The final proclamation was issued on January 1st, 1863, and the 13th Amendment, is officially abolishing slavery, was ratified by Congress 2 years later on December 18th, 1865. So don't guess any later than 1863, because the description already told you so. So what year would you guess for that one? Again, if you've studied Civil War history at all, and you're keyed into the Battle of Antietam, that'll also help you out. Really, this should be a very narrow window. I mean, it was during the Civil War times and not any later than 1863, so you really ought to be pretty close. Secondly, September 25th of what year? Congress amends the U.S. Constitution to prohibit the establishment of a state church or governmental interference with the free exercise of religion. Folks, this is part of what is called the First Amendment. The freedom of religion. Also in that same amendment, you have the freedom of speech, the freedom of the press, the freedom of lawful assembly, etc. So, what year do you think that was? All right, we're going to give you the reveal here on both of those years in 3, 2, 1, boom. All right, so it was 1862, just months before the actual final draft of the Emancipation Proclamation, that the first draft was issued by Abraham Lincoln. So September 22nd of 1862. And then the First Amendment, the Bill of Rights in general, if you will, the first 10 amendments to the Constitution, well, 1789. 1789. If you watch Schoolhouse Rock at all, yeah, I know I'm dating myself here. I'm old, but in 1787, I'm told, our founding fathers all sat down and wrote a list of principles that's known the world around. That was the Constitution, 1787. This First Amendment, 1789. All right, so I mentioned that we're going to get into a passage from the New Testament book of Hebrews to help us get our brains going in the right track here for that. We do have the word of the day. And the word of the day this time can be either a verb or a noun. If it is a verb, it is defined as to hold in place or to secure firmly. But if it's used as a noun, and boy, this is going to give it away, you're all going to get this, it's too easy. If it's a noun, it's defined as something that serves to hold an object firmly, or a reliable support, or a device, usually of metal, attached to a ship or a boat by a cable and cast overboard to hold it in a particular place. That last part is surely a dead giveaway for you. And yes, here comes the word of the day in 3, 2, 1, boom. Anchor. Anchor is our word of the day, which brings us to the quote of the day. And here it is. And yes, I have just gone right on ahead and given you the actual person, the quoter, the person that uttered or wrote this, because honestly, I doubt very highly that much of anybody would be able to guess this out of thin air, even with a bunch of hints. So the person is Alfred Lord Tennyson, a guy that lived in the 1800s and is known as a writer of epic and narrative poetry mostly. And he said, "Cast all your cares on God, that anchor holds." So the implication is that some anchors that we might choose to use to firmly secure our lives might not hold. Some anchors might not be sturdy enough to hold up under the force of all the turbulence of life. But if you choose God as your anchor, that anchor will hold. Now, just in case some of you are going, Alfred Lord Tennyson, I mean, come on, what the heck? Where did that come from? Just to prove to you that this guy is not totally an obscure figure or anything, he did have a couple of other pithy one-liner type quotes that are still widely used or widely, kind of parroted today. How about this one? Theirs is not to reason why, theirs is but to do or die. You may have heard something like that. Sometimes theirs, sometimes ours, whatever, but theirs is not the reason why, theirs is but to do or die. It's from probably his most famous poem, The Charge of the Light Brigade. But yes, that's one of his more famous lines. And here's one more. "'Tis better to have loved and lost than never to have loved at all." And that's from his poem entitled In Memoriam. It's a quote, it's a saying that gets quoted back to people a lot, especially right after a bad breakup, a friend is trying to comfort another friend after a breakup, and they may say, "Oh, it's better to have loved and lost than never to have loved at all." And usually everybody kind of nods and goes, "Yeah, that's true," but nobody has a clue who originally said that. Well, now you know. It's Alfred Lord Tennyson, the same guy that said, to anchor your life in God because that anchor will hold. Let me give you another little illustration of what I mean and maybe what Tennyson means about anchoring your life. Because literally, an anchor, a metal anchor, is used to secure a ship or a boat. But what does it mean to anchor your life? And here's maybe another little way to think about it. one of the spots I like to walk from time to time is down in Shorewood at a place called Estabrook Park. And on a walk down there the other day, beautiful, hazy, but by and large sunny day, I walked right past a tower. And here's a picture of it. Now, there's a bunch of towers down around Estabrook Park. And on my walk route, kind of from Hampton on down to Capitol and then looping through and up the bike trail all the way into Lincoln Park and then back around down to Hampton again. Along that path, you see all kinds of towers, various television towers for Milwaukee area TV stations, radio towers, cell phone towers. But this particular tower, you can see here very plainly from the photo, is anchored, yes, anchored by a series of these steel cables. And if you look down, like right where I was walking, just a few feet off the path that I was walking, here's what those cables are actually anchored to on the ground. I mean, look at the strength of this apparatus. Protected from the outside public by barbed wire fencing, anchored into some sort of an iron or steel base, and then further anchored into a concrete base below that. There's a lot of sturdiness here. There's a lot of fortitude in this setup. And if you go back to the original photo, and if you look carefully, and you may have to squint a little bit or put your face right up close to your computer screen and look, carefully in the background in the sky, you will be able to see that there are other sets of cables going in other directions from the tower to other bases or other anchor points, so that this tower can really, even though it appears to be relatively thin, and of course it's not built like a pyramid, it doesn't have a wide base. It's a narrow little thing and very tall. Despite all of that, because it is so solidly anchored by all these steel cables into these various bases at different directions from the tower itself, well, that means that no matter the wind, no matter what kind of thunderstorms or, anything, that this tower is going to hold up. Now, I don't know. Could it withstand a tornado? I hope so, because you'd hate to think of a tower that tall made out of metal falling on anyone or anything. It's probably set up, and tested to be able to withstand extreme wind conditions, maybe even a tornado. But it's another way to visualize what we mean. What does it mean to be anchored in something solid? To be anchored in a way that the winds and the storms of life can't bring you down. What does it mean, as Tennyson put it, to choose God as your anchor and have that solid anchor that will hold? Well, there's actually a scripture passage that makes mention of this. Now, I hate to take scriptural quotes out of context. And for that reason, I'm going to read for you this whole next screen, but then I'm going to focus in on basically one line. So bear with me, just kind of grasp the overall context of this passage from Hebrews chapter 6, verses 13 through 20. When God made a promise to Abraham, because he had no one greater by whom to swear, he swore by himself, saying, I will surely bless you and multiply you. And thus Abraham, having patiently endured, obtained the promise. Human beings, of course, swear by someone greater than themselves, and an oath given as confirmation puts an end to all dispute. In the same way, when God desired to show even more clearly to the heirs of the promise the unchangeable character of his purpose, he guaranteed it by an oath, so that, through two unchangeable things, in which it is impossible that God would prove false, we who have taken refuge might be strongly encouraged to seize the hope set before us. We have this hope, a secure and steadfast anchor of the soul, a hope that enters the inner shrine behind the curtain, where Jesus, a forerunner on our behalf, has entered, having become a high priest forever, according to the order of Melchizedek. Okay, now your head may be spinning here because there's a bunch of compound sentences. In fact, maybe if you wrote something like this, your English teacher might say you're guilty of a run-on sentence or two in here. I mean, there's a lot of subordinate clauses and a lot of things going on. We're flashing back to the Old Testament and Abraham and oaths, and then something about the order of Melchizedek at the end. And don't get hung up on all that. I wanted you to see the context, but I really want you to focus your thoughts here on the particular phrase, the particular sentence. We have this hope, a sure and steadfast anchor of the soul. A hope that is a sure and steadfast anchor of the soul. In other words, just like Tennyson said, if we choose God, our relationship with God, God's trustworthiness, God's faithfulness, our faith in God's faithfulness, if we anchor our lives in that, then indeed our lives are anchored in a way that is sure and steadfast. Kind of like that tower in Estabrook Park with all those thick, strong steel cables anchored to big, heavy metal apparatuses that are then anchored to heavy, thick, solid concrete bases. The storms may come, the winds may come, and yet our anchor holds. Our anchor is sure and steadfast because our anchor is our Creator God and the teachings of God as we see them in the life of Jesus Christ. Man, what a wonderful thing. Even at times like these, in the fall of 2020, with so much that seems dark and dangerous and difficult in the news, facing our country, facing your school, for heaven's sakes, whether to stay open, how to quarantine people that turn up positive, so much trouble in the world right now. And yet we have a hope, and that hope in God can be our sure and steadfast anchor. So, I'd like you to ponder a few questions for reflection. First, who or what serves as an anchor in your life? And, that may be a person, that may be a thing, an activity, an idea. Who or what serves as an anchor in your life? And let's go a little further. Secondly, do you have multiple anchors? I think that's okay. You might identify more than one. Hopefully, God is among your list. But you may have different anchors in different aspects of your life. You might have someone or something that kind of serves for you as an anchor in your life at school. But it may be that you have a different anchor on your sports team or in your extracurricular activities that you enjoy the most. It may be that if you have a part-time job, you have a different anchor at your part-time job. It may be that you have a different anchor in your family. So, who are all of those anchors? Who or what? Again, they might be people, they might be principles or ideas, they might be activities, but what feels solid, sturdy, sure, and steadfast in the various aspects of your life? And then, thirdly, are you an anchor for anyone? Could you be an anchor for anyone? Think about that. Is it possible that you are, without knowing it right now, someone's anchor? Or is it possible that with just a little intentional effort on your part, you could become an anchor for someone in some aspect of their life? And man, what a wonderful ministry that would be, to serve as an anchor type person for someone else. Maybe that's your best friend. Maybe that's your neighbor. Maybe that's someone you don't even know all that well. Maybe that's someone your own age. Maybe not. Maybe someone quite a bit older than you, or someone quite a bit younger than you that's looking up to you. Could it be that you are or might in time become an anchor for someone else? And so, our spiritual growth target for this week, something that I hope you will join me in trying to do this week, at least at some point this week, take a moment and thank God for the hope that is a sure and steadfast anchor of the soul. Thank God for being God. Thank God for being ever loving. Thank God for being ever faithful. Thank God for being completely and 100% trustworthy. Thank God for being God, because our connection to God is our hope, the hope that is a sure and steadfast anchor for our souls, even at times like these that feel windy and stormy. Still, we have that anchor. All right, before I sign off, folks, upcoming events. Next Sunday, there will not be a youth video because it is Confirmation Sunday and World Communion Sunday. We will have an outdoor service in the north end of the parking lot at OCC, and that will be the only service that day. There will be no 10:30 service, only 9 a.m. outside in the parking lot at the north end of the parking lot. That's the end closest to the campfire area at OCC. So it'll be a really wonderful, special service, and we will observe social distancing and masks, and of course we'll be outside, and so the risk will be lower, and we look forward to celebrating both Confirmation and World Communion Sunday that morning. Then on Wednesday, October 7th, we have our next Pilgrim Fellowship, or for short PF, Zoom, and that'll be at 7 p.m. No big, formal thing. We just get together on Zoom for 45 minutes or an hour. We chit-chat for a bit. We have a devotion and a bit of a discussion. We usually have some trivia or some kind of a game, and we close with our joys and concerns and a moment of prayer. Not a big thing, and the more the merrier. So watch for a link. It'll be sent out, a Zoom link, a few days in advance there. And then on Sunday, October 11th, so 2 weeks from today, MP3 is back in person. So that all means that this video that you're watching right now will probably be the last youth video for at least a while, because the plan is Confirmation and World Communion service next Sunday, and then starting the Sunday after that, October 11th, back to in-person MP3. Now, it is still pretty risky, in my own opinion, for us to meet for MP3 in the youth room, because the youth room isn't that big and the ventilation isn't that great. And so we are not going to do that. We can't socially distance, and instead we are going to meet upstairs in Fellowship Hall, where the space is much larger. We can spread the chairs out. We can hopefully open up a couple windows and get a breeze going through there. And so that's the plan for October 11th. Also, I hope you will mark your calendars for October 31st. Yes, Halloween Day is the day that the Wisconsin Congregational Association proudly presents the Fall Rally event to be held 1 to 6 p.m. at Fox River Congregational Church in Pewaukee. As some of you know, they have a wonderful campus that includes woods with trails. They have a campfire area. So, weather permitting, the plan is to basically be entirely outdoors with masks and social distancing, maybe do a scavenger hunt, have some snacks, even have a campfire at the tail end, a chance to get together with friends from camp, from mission trips, from other kinds of youth ministry contexts. It'll be great. The CDC is recommending that nobody trick or treat this year because of the risks, the health risks from COVID. So you won't be missing out on anything anyway by coming to Fox River. This will be grades 6 through 12, Fox River Congregational Church in Pewaukee, Saturday afternoon, Halloween Day. That'll be October 31st. All right. I think I covered all the bases, folks. I do hope that you, again, are having a wonderful weekend and have a good rest of your Sunday. And we'll hope to see you next Sunday in the parking lot for confirmation and World Communion. Take care and God bless.